Yeah. So let's talk about the PHP 8. So it's actually a major version, or we can say a major update after a long time waiting. Yeah. So it brings many things like new features, improvements, and uh, syntax is more elegant error handling, type systems, and things like that. But and also at the same time, PHP communities tries to like minimize uh, the the break could be happen to your applications because of the new update. So yeah, you will find most of the things having backward compatibility, so that the update do not abruptly breaks your current running applications. Yeah. So first we'll see what are the new features are introduced in the PHP 8. So we have union types. So before we go into union types, we also had the same the same kind of features in PHP 7. So if you might have seen, we have many experienced developers, so they definitely have used the union types when in the declarations of string or a null in the PHP documentation style. Um, Even we used to have the collection or array or iterable type in the PHP doc block. So those were the things like we were using in a PHP doc block. So the intention was to specify that the return type of a particular method uh, could be either of two values. It could be either collection, an array, or it could be string or null. So that things helps us. Helps the implementer of the method to know what the method will return at the end. In PHP 8, we have a union type, so which means we can define multiple types for the variable, for the property, or even for the return types. Okay, so rather than having one single type, we could have two types. Let's say for variable, let's assume that I have a math class, and my math class is preparing a square of a number. It computes the square of a number. So I can define my variable number uh, as of having two type, integer or float. So yeah, the same things can be applied to the parameters or the arguments of the methods, and also for the return type of the method. Yeah, so we can use any number of types for our variables, arguments, return types. Yeah, there are certain limitations though. We cannot, let's say, use void with any of other scalar type. So because void means nothing, and uh, if if a if a type if a return type of a function or a variable type is null, uh, nulls means something, so it cannot be void. So we cannot use void with any of the other scalar types supported by PHP. So nullable types cannot be used with the null. So having two same things at the same times is not allowed. So having null with the null is it's not the logical things to do. So it's not allowed by the PHP. Actually, we have seen like in PHP 7, we used to have a question mark and a string to specify that uh, the type of variable or the return type could be either string or a null. So it's actually a shorthand notation for the string and null union type. Uh, yeah. So uh, if we if we uh, if we used to use the null with the other type, we can use like this in float nut null. Uh, duplicating of types are not allowed. For example, in union int is not allowed because it's the same things. We are duplicating the same things. Even the null with the int, I mean the int and null or int is not allowed because int and int gets duplicated. Also, the redundant types are not allowed. For example, bool and false, because false is eventually a boolean value. So boolean is again are duplicates. So redundant of these types. So these type of declarations are not allowed when we are using union types in our declarations. So basically, these union types are the new syntax changes which are introduced in PHP 8, and it does not break any existing functionality. Uh, yeah, so if you have an old application, a legacy application running on your PHP version less than 8, should work fine as it is. Yeah. Then we have named parameter or a named argument. So, um, so basically, prior to PHP 8, we only had positional arguments or positional parameters. So and the other programming languages already having this named parameter. So, but before PHP 8, we only had positional parameters or the arguments. For example, if you look at the array field functions, inbuilt functions of PHP, we had the index, count, and the value which we would like to fill an array with. So this is something like uh, uh, we need to always because of this we always required to have a look at the PHP documentation when we are using functions, even though we know what the intent of the function is, but we might not know the ordering of the arguments, and sometimes it quite confusing with the PHP's inbuilt functions because there are few functions where we have these positional arguments at different places. For example, an index could have at first on first place, on second place in some other functions of PHP. So that was sometimes really pain when we were working with PHP. We required to go to the documentation to see the what what are the orders of the functions. But this is now no more the requirement because we can give the name to the parameter. So even we can use we can call the PHP's built-in functions by using named argument. So the same function we can call like start index. We can specify the index. We can specify the count and the value for the function. So it now becomes easier than before. We also have a long I mean the functions with the long parameter list. And when we are using these functions, it becomes difficult for the maintainer as well if they need to do something in the functions, or they might need to debug the functions. They need to see like what's the position of a particular arguments, and what's the value against the definition of functions. But if now we can write this kind of long functions with the name of parameter, so it becomes quite straightforward for the implementer and for the maintainer of the source code. So if you see this set cookie function, it's easy to see like what's the name of cookie, what's the value, path, domains, and the other parameters. So yes, it has so it enhanced the readability of our code, uh, and it's in the IT field, it's being said that if you have more readable code, which means a new people, new team member can be on board quickly, because most of the time when we are working with application, we are reading code rather than writing the code. Yeah, so we could also have an optional arguments for our methods, and the name parameter can works with this kind of optional parameters as well. So here you can see that my format city weather function is having two arguments. City and the weather, and the weather is an optional. So I can omit specifying the weather in my call. I can call the method specifying both the arguments, and it will give me the response. The weather in Anand is sunny today. I would say hot today because we are having yeah, very very acute temperatures nowadays in India. Uh, yeah. So there are certain limitations as well when we are using the named parameters. So um, the name parameter can be used after the positional parameter. So we can combine the positional parameter and the name parameter when we are calling a function. So here in the first line, you see that I'm calling the function with the positional parameter, and then I have a name parameter. So that's fine. So the only constraint is we should, if we are mixing a positional and name parameter, the name parameter has to be has to be there in after the positional parameter. Uh, if we have positional parameter after the named parameter, the PHP will throw an error. We can also skip arguments which are optionals, or even we can, if we are using name parameter, we can specify the arguments or the parameters in whatever order we want. So, for example, for setting off a cookie, we could have our own function which minimize the boilerplate code for creating a cookie, because we might use the same path and domains and the other security options when we are creating a cookie. So in this case, yeah, we can skip few parameters, and we can specify the parameter what we want. So prior to PHP 8, this was not possible. For example, assume that I would like to override the HTTP only parameter, because the default value is true, and if I would like to specify it as false, then it was mandatory for me to specify all the parameters in the same order. So that was the case in PHP prior to PHP 8. But yeah, PHP 8 comes with this uh, amazing feature. So we no longer need to specify the parameters which we would like to skip. The backward compatibility we could for so if we have legacy application, and if we are going to upgrade it to PHP 8, we need to have a look at this function called user func array. If our application is using this, because in some situation this could be a breaking change. uh, for example, so it could be a problem in certain situations only, and not in all, because when we are calling a function on array, uh, what we specify an array, and if the array is an associative array, because associative array has the keys, and this named parameter arguments understood it as the name of the arguments, and that could be a problem in certain situations. But if you have if you are not using associative array, and if you have just an indexed array, so that should be fine. It will not be a breakpoint, a breaking change for your application. Yeah. Then we have uh, another good introduction in terms of the attributes. So those who have worked with the frameworks like Symfony, Laravel, Kick PHP, and the other frameworks know that that frameworks these frameworks are using annotations quite a lot. So many of us are quite aware with the doctrine ORM library. So many of I'm sure that many of us have used this library and its annotations. Even I've seen like many application is using this library to use the annotations. So yeah. So we used to specify in our entity class, or you can say that the model class, which actually dealing with the database. We used to specify some miscellaneous information for our framework, specifying that the table name associated with the entities so and so, and things like that. So yeah, so these annotation were just used to specify more informations about the class, about the properties, and things like that using PHP dot block. So the attributes are doing the same things. So earlier, these were the things which were implemented by external libraries, but it's now native to PHP 8, and we can use the attributes to specify this kind of metadata to the our class definitions, or the property declarations, or the method declarations. We can use these attributes. So the syntax for using attribute is is the has and then the square bracket, and in the square bracket we can specify our attributes. So yes, the same doctrine library annotation I can use with the attributes. Uh, Even the other libraries, for example, API resources, I can specify the API resource if I am designing an API using using some libraries specifically. So this example is from API platform. So they have this attributes API resource, which tells the framework that this particular entity class is an API resource, so that framework knows that it's an API resource, and framework can automatically supports the CRUD operations or the operations supported by particular frameworks. So same things you can find in Laravel as well. Uh, so basically, these are the metadata information. So when we are building, so the use case, you can find the use case of these attributes when you are developing a third-party libraries. For example, if you are developing a library which can read your code and can generate open API documents, so that you can use the end result, the JSON of of the library, JSON generated out of the libraries uh, to prepare maybe Swagger UI. So yes, so these libraries basically use these metadata informations and the reflection classes to read these informations and do the things whatever the needs of the libraries. Yeah, so uh, this particular stubs we cannot use with the PHP older than version 8, because if we see the syntax is having has and then the square bracket. So if you have this attribute definition in single line, that's not a problem with the older version, because PHP treats it as one line comment. But if you but these attributes also we can specify in multiple line. So if you have this multiple line attribute definitions in your PHP 7 or prior version, you would you would break the application. So yes, it do not have backward compatibility. Um, then we have, a very time-saving feature, I would say. Uh, it's a constructor property promotion. So why I'm saying it's a time-saving, because if you see, like in old PHP, we used to have Popo classes, or in Java it's called uh, Jojo. Yeah, I don't remember the exact name, but in PHP it's Popo. So the class, this kind of class have the properties and the constructor, and the duty of constructor is to initiate the properties with the values provided in the constructor. And this class could have getter and setter methods for all the properties. So this is the steps we used to write in PHP 7. Now all this line can be replaced with this one line only. So it's a constructor uh, property promotion. So when we we can specify all the properties in the constructor. It types, it access specifier, and even the default values. And we do not need to declare the properties. Even we do not need to assign the property, I mean the arguments to the property in our constructor. So everything will be done automatically by the PHP for us. So yeah, it's cool, I think. So you imagine, like in my application, I used to have this DTO classes a lot. Uh, I used to have VO value objects and the DTO data transfer objects a lot. When my application or when my interface would like to expose only few things based on the API, the API call. So yeah, and for such DTO, I used to have many properties. For example, name, email for the users is the obvious things, and the date of birth. And then I what I used to do, like then I have a constructor, and I when I create an instance of my DTO, I specify all the values so that my DTO class can be initiated with all values. And with uh, with introduction of this new PHP feature, I need not to write all these steps. I can these all things can be achieved in one single line. This like this. Yeah. This particular feature is not compatible with the older version, because if we write it like this, all the automatic stuffs is not done when you have PHP 7. So yeah, have a look at the version of PHP when you are working with PHP application, maybe legacy application. You cannot use this PHP 8 feature. So yes. Uh, then this this particular feature also, I would like to say, saves us a lot of time. So prior to PHP 8, we used to add too much checks to make sure that if a variable we are working with or an object we are working with is not null. So you might have seen this kind of check for the null in your applications. So this is quite possible to see this kind of code in your PHP applications. Uh, Thanks to this null-safe operator, so the operator question mark and then the arrow operator is a combination of question mark and the arrow operator. This could minimize this too much line of code in, so into one line. So sorry, I can write the same code with single line like this. So here it makes a check on repository variable. It checks whether the repository is null or not. If not null, then we have a method chaining. So we have got an object inside the variables, and we can then make a call to the functions of that or a method available to that object. And if that that method returns against us an object, we can still put it in a chain. So all this chain even if we are not using the chaining, we can also use null-safe operator, and yes, that does all this null checks for us, and we do not need to do. Yeah. So there are some guidelines where we should use the null safe and when we should not. So you should use this. We should use this null safe operator when we expect our property or the return value of our method could be null. So if we accept the variable could have null value, or the method could return a null value, we can use this null safe operator. Otherwise, it's recommended to use to throw an exceptions when from your method when you are not expecting a null from a method. Yeah, so this is a new syntax, and we cannot use this in our PHP 7 application. So if you are working with PHP 7 application, try to avoid it. And when you are upgrading it, you can refactor and remove quite a lot code using this null safe operators, mainly the checks on for the nulls. Um, so apart from this new feature, we have few improvements added to the library itself. So in the library, we have mainly functions, new functions which are added, and the classes. So first, we'll see the functions. So if you remember, we were used to use this str pose, which gives us positions of a character or a string in a string, and if it's not being used with the proper type checking, it could leads to an error, or it could leads to a bug in the flow of our application. So actually, these kind of functions were ambiguous, and that was the cause of the bugs in PHP legacy applications. So the community member has proposed changes or introducing new functions in the libraries, and yeah, the request has been accepted, and we now have new functions for to dealing with this kind of string functions. For example, string contains, string starts with, and strings ends with. So these are now quite straightforward. We can check if the string contains the uh, the needle the search terms or not. So yeah, it's quite straightforward. So all will return you true or false, and yeah, you're good to go. We also have one fantastic functions, I would say, like um, um, when we were working with other programming language like Java or .NET, we could easily catch the division by zero. But that was not the case with the PHP, and that was throwing an error if our expressions encounters a division by zero. But we now have a function fdiv specifically for this purpose, specifically introduced for this function for this purpose, and we can use it. And these functions, sorry, these functions returns us three things: infinite, negative infinite, and not applicable. So yes, if we encounter a division by zero, it returns infinite. In terms of negative, division. It returns negative infinite, and of course, 0 by 0 is not NN. Sorry. Um, Apart from this, we have many more functions which are introduced with PHP 8. So because of we have some constraint, I cannot go in detail, or I cannot cover all the functions. But if you would like to see, please have a look at the PHP.NET, the documentations on PHP.NET. Yeah, so we also have a few classes and interfaces which are introduced with PHP 8. So one such interface is Stringable interface. So um, so it's actually tells that the class or object has two string methods implemented, and we can echo out, or we can use uh, 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 that the object of a class uh, to return as a string. Even if we, uh, uh, onwards PHP 8, if your class has true string method implemented, it's basically treats the the class as stringable class. Or so basically you need not to write implement stringable if you have two string magic methods implemented for your class. So it's implicit in PHP 8, but you can also explicitly specify that your class is implementing stringable interface. So here we can see uh, a real life example for using this stringable behavior. Assume that we are preparing IPv4 address. So we are just collecting four octa numbers, and we concatenate. So here you see I have used the constructor promotions. So I need not to write and set the value, all octa number values to my object. So it's implicit, and I could have a string two string magic method implementations which could return me a string which gives me the IPv4 address. So we have now PHP token class in PHP 8. So this is a kind of pseudocode, or the internal code of this PHP token class. So this is actually an alternatives to the token get all method of PHP standard library. Um, um, this can be used mainly when you are let's say creating a parser, or creating your own language kind of stuff. So an example could be like this: if you have a code, let's assume you have a PHP code, and you would like to tokenize these statements. The static method to tokenize, if we see the signature of the class, we have a static method tokenize. So this tokenize method gives us all the tokens which a parser finds in our uh, in our code. Yeah. So here is output, like what you receive when you use this token class. So you see, you will have all the tokens tokenized by the method. Then we have some improvements or new additions in the type systems. We have already have a looked at the union types in quite a detail. Apart from the union types, we now have mixed type. So we were used to use or specify the type of property variables or maybe the written types of a method in PHP documentation specifying mixed. Mixed means the type of variable or an argument or written type could be anything. So yeah, so it could be anything means it could be anything. We know we I mean so there's no constraint. It could be string, float, array. It could be collections or yeah. So it could be any scalar values. So we can now specify um, the type with mixed. So it's actually equivalent to a union type. So when we specify a type of variable or a written type or the arguments type as mixed, which literally means this the union of everything, and the union of everything is string, int, float, bool, null, array, object, callable, uh, even resource. So it could be anything. PHP 8 also has introduced static return type. So we could like now return, we can use the word statics to return an object of the current class. So the only constraint is we cannot use this outside the context of class. So we used to use it inside the class only. So yeah, so this could be used when you are uh, when you are mm, creating a singleton instance for your class, for example. Mm. Then there are few things which are improved and quite elegantly handled in PHP 8, that is error handling. So yeah, so let's see what's we have in terms of error handling. So so most of the things which are introduced are like backward incompatible. So if you have PHP 8, if you are using PHP 8, uh, the library function will throw an exceptions, whereas earlier it was throwing an error. Yeah. So now this internal functions throws an exceptions rather than the errors or the value errors, for example, pedal errors. So yeah, we now also have we can use a throw keyword or throw in an expression. So this could also save a lot of boilerplate code for in our applications when, for example, if we would like to check if we have the get value set or not, the value is set or not in the get global variables. So if not, and in that case, we can directly throw an exceptions. So earlier we used to write like we required to write if and else statement, if and else block specifically, if we would like to throw an exception. But this can be now done in a single line of code. Yeah, with the try, prior to PHP 8, we were just we were able to catch the object or the resources uh, uh, in the catch block, but we can now catch type error. So the type error which PHP internal functions throws, we can catch, and we can display a specific message in such cases. So yes, this is a fantastic introductions. Apart from that, we have some miscellaneous improvements. For example, uh, E all is now default by default. So the error reporting is now E all for by default when you are installing PHP. Of course, you can still overwrite it, but by default it's E all. And the assertion throws and exceptions. Earlier, it was not the case. Now the assertion throws and exceptions, and the iterate in front of the function call is now like is not silently suppressing the errors. Rather, you will see the exceptions and the errors, even if you have the direct in front of your function call. So if you have a PHP 7 applications and you are migrating to PHP 8, make sure that you have a proper catch wrapping to your at the rate, and you remove at the rate, because PHP it will not silently suppress the errors. Yeah, so I hope I've tried my best to cover all the possible what I can cover in the time frame. But as I said that in the beginning, the idea for arranging this kind of event is to share the knowledge what we have and learn from the community members, is to have a community that shares and that learns together. So that's the basic that's the idea. And so as a part of that initiations, we are we are also arranging few events on project managements and the agile methodologies. So yeah, so if you are interested in the in the project, exploring the project managements and the agile scrum masters and things like that, so you all are welcome. You can attend these events as well. So basically the idea is to have at least one events in a month on technology and one on the project management. We are still welcoming, and we are still discussing what could be the best for the community to to whatever to the community members. So we are discussing these things in person with everyone. But yes, if you have any suggestions or something to say about what can be done better, uh, so every feedback is everything is all welcome. So yeah, please throw us a comment or feedback.
Yes, so let me just conclude the event. Just give you a moment. So I'm dropping some links in the chat if you want to connect with Kalpesh, and also follow us on LinkedIn as well. Apart from that, I also added one link of special interest group Mainly it is only related at the moment for Agile and project, or if you are looking for product management, then we have a special interest group running on LinkedIn at the moment, and we are going to organize more events in that group. Apart from that, we as Kalpesh mainly cover all the things that I would like to conclude this webinar. We are getting started on few topics. We few days ago we ran a poll on LinkedIn to see on which topics like Agile we who is more interested, and we found few feedbacks from the LinkedIn community, and we just started based on that. So our first webinar on Agile is starting on 4th of June. So I would also like to invite everyone to make registration so that you don't miss out. Apart from that, I've seen only 8 to 10 votes on the polling. So before ending the poll, I would just give 1 or 2 minutes in the poll section of this webinar. If you want to just give your last opinion, because it would help. Let's say some of the question like, for example, which PHP version you are using, and for example, if you are able to, let's say, attend in future person meetup, or which topic will be interested for you, and also which PHP editor. It's a basic question, but some of which will helpful on our side to understand better. So this is our first event. So I like to apologize because if we are not able to meet your expectations, you are free to give us suggestions to improve. And apart from that, we can commit on our side that to host at least 1 or 2 events every month. So we will have more topics to discuss with you. And apart from that, from next time, we will try to make it more interactive by introducing some more tools as well. And just as Kalpesh mentioned, let us know if you have any interesting webinar topics. So we will also going to cover that for sure. And thanks for attending this webinar. We hope you will enjoy it. And that's all from my side. And please feel free to pass this along with your colleagues who might be interested on our next events. And that's all from my side. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Yeah, and we could also utilize this time for the networking. Yeah, so if anyone would like to say something, um, yeah, you're welcome. So, do you have any suggestion, feedback? What can be done for the community? What can be improved?